I've set myself the task of reading Paul Auster's latest novel for the Booker shortlist, which is over 1,000 pages long. I've joined in reading the Decameron for a read-along, which is over 900 pages long. But can I stop myself being excited about new books being published in October? No. No, I can't. Hello, I'm Eric from Lonesome Reader. It is a rainy day in London, so I thought I'd do a book haul video about new books being published in the UK in October that I'm really excited about reading. But this is also a haul of the books that I picked up in America when I went there for a holiday in the past couple of weeks. So I'd asked in a previous video about what books I should buy while I'm in America, so thanks for all of your suggestions. I picked up on a few of them and got some of them here. And also I got this really cool new t-shirt, actually not in America, but when I zipped up to Montreal for a couple of days, I got this t-shirt and you can see why I liked it. Nice little simple design. It's cool. Now, having all these new books which are being published and having bought all these new books, you think that would be enough to be getting on with, but no. On October 7th, I'm going to be doing a bookshop crawl where I'll buy many more books, because that is the official bookshop day for Books Are My Bag. If you don't live in the UK, you might not have heard that Books Are My Bag is a lovely, ongoing, nationwide campaign to excite people about going to bookshops and to celebrate local bookshops. This year they have limited editions of mugs and tote bags with Orla Keeley designs, and Orla Keeley is a designer that I love. Like, seriously, I have placemats and tea towels with their design on it. This is sort of what it looks like, and then on the other side of the tote bag you can see Books Are My Bag. And then there's a really lovely mug as well that also reads Books Are My Bag. They very kindly sent me this mug and tote bag, and I'm really excited to join in the day just to go to local bookshops, have a good nose and browse around, and I'm sure I'm going to be buying lots. So that's super duper duper. Now on to the books that are being published in the UK in October for the first time. I'm going to start with talking about Jennifer Egan's new novel, Manhattan Beach. Now I know A Visit from the Goon Squad got a lot of attention. I still haven't read that book, or actually any of her fiction before, although I read the anthology, the Best American Short Stories, when she was the editor of it that year, but that doesn't really count because she just wrote the introduction, she didn't actually write the stories. But anyway, I'm in the midst of reading Manhattan Beach, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's just a good historical story about a woman in New York City during World War II. Well, I mean, she starts as a girl in the first section, and then it moves into sections where she's a woman. And she's working on the naval yards because all the men who had worked on those yards have gone to war, and she's depicting the whole underworld sort of crime scene of that era. And yeah, I'm about a quarter of the way through so far, really enjoying it. Next is a big new chunky novel called As a God Might Be by Neal Griffiths. And you might be aware that Neal Griffiths has his own booktube channel where he does these long, thoughtful videos, quite often about experimental or edgy new fiction. And this novel is being published by Dodo Inc., which is one of my favorite upcoming new publishers that started a couple years ago. So this is a novel about a man who gets disillusioned with his sort of middle-class lifestyle, and he decides to leave his wife and family to go to a desolate area and found a new church with a group of drifters. And so I think it's about the crisis of sort of modern religion and the existential crisis of modern being. It's one of those real searching novels that it sort of reminds me a bit of Paul Kingsnorth's novel Beast, which came out last year, which is about a man who just completely abandoned his life to go live on his own out in the middle of nowhere and search for the meaning of life. So I'm really attracted to those sorts of stories, but I'm also slightly wary of them because my natural sympathy goes towards well, what about the wife who got left behind and who has to raise the family while the man goes out and finds himself? So I'm going to be really interested to see how Neal Griffiths handles that whole storyline. And next, speaking of the Best American Short Stories series, I have the new anthology of the Best American Short Stories. This year it's edited by Meg Wolitzer, and there are short stories by TC Boyle and Emma Klein and Lauren Groff. I'm really tempted with this anthology to do a sort of vlog style video where I make very short little videos after I read each story and do just like really like 5 or 10 second review of that story. And then I had the idea of also doing like a facial expression, like as a review, to try to like sum up all of my feelings about that story in one facial expression. I got this sort of idea. I was talking in the comments of one of Michael Shirapa's videos, and he was talking about whether he should do a new video vlog about reading the new anthology for the Pushcart Prize. So if you'd like to see me make that video, comment below and let me know. But I always really enjoy reading this anthology because it picks up stories from magazines and literary reviews that I probably missed over the course of the past year. Next is a very much anticipated novel. It's Andrew Michael Hurley's new novel called Devil's Day. So if you read his first novel called The Loney and loved it as much as I did and were creeped out as much as I was by it, you'll be very excited about this new novel. It takes place again in a rural setting, and I think it's about a man who takes over a sheep farm, and there's some sort of local ritual to try to keep the devil out, and there's this question about whether the devil has infiltrated this village. So that all sounds spooky and creepy and weird, and it sounds like the perfect kind of autumnal read. This is Armistead Maupin's memoir, Logical Family. So when I was in my early 20s, I read the Tales of the City series, I watched the television series, I was obsessed with this whole like queer counterculture lifestyle of San Francisco. It was lots and lots of fun. So I'm very excited to read about his actual life. And apparently this is a book in 2 parts, where the first part describes how he grew up in a very conservative southern environment, that his family really believed that like the South will rise again and all of those ridiculous reactionary ideas. But then the second part goes to where he actually moved to San Francisco and tells the real story of his immersion there and his coming into himself as a gay man. And so I'm really eager to just soak up that whole story. Next is a novel translated from the Italian, Ferocity. I love like one-word titles for novels, and I think Ferocity is a particularly good title. When I published a novel many years ago, I just called it simply Enough. So yeah, I'm a big fan of one-word titles, and this was written by Nicola Lagioia. Lagioia. Sorry, that's really awful. This is being published by Europa Editions, who are a lovely publisher that publish lots of really interesting translated literature. So this is a novel set in the 80s in Italy, and in the very beginning, a girl turns up injured, and it's the story about how her whole family were drawn into the sort of underworld of this Italian society and the compromises and sacrifices they had to make to get to a certain position. And so next is an actual book of short stories by TC Boyle. It's his new book called The Relive. And I don't think I've ever actually read a novel of TC Boyle's. He's quite prolific, but I have read many of his short stories, and I do really love the sort of angle he takes on life and society. His stories are often quite inventive and quite satirical and quite clever and funny as well. So I'm always eager to read more of his new work. And if you've read any of TC Boyle's novels and want to recommend one to me, please let me know. And finally is Michael Sala's novel, The Restorer, and this is published by Text Publishing. This is the story of a family where the couple, the man and the woman, split apart, and they decide to try to reconcile and get back together and build a new life together in a different place. I think they moved from Australia to the UK. And they have 2 children, and it's about all the difficulties of them trying to reconcile and come back together as a family. So I think this sounds like a really heartrending story. There's a good quote on the cover as well from Hannah Kent, who's a really great novelist. And she says, "I would defy anyone to read this story and remain unmoved." So those are the new books that are being published in October in the UK, and then these are the books that I bought while I was in America. I went to a whole range of bookshops. The really fun thing about doing a road trip is that you get to stop at lots and lots of different places, and so I stopped in some like really small, like just dusty old secondhand bookshops that were alongside the road, and then I went to some other like quite major chains or very established independent bookshops. First I picked up Notes of a Crocodile by Miaojin. This is the story of queer misfits in late 1980s Taipei, and all I had to read was Queer Misfits, and I was like, I'm buying this book. So I'm very excited about this. And I also picked up a book of short stories by Samantha Hunt called The Dark Dark, and this is actually an autographed copy, which is very exciting. And I loved her novel Mr. Splitfoot. It was such like a weird, like quirky novel, and I wish it had got more attention because I thought it was just brilliant. I also bought Celeste Neen's new novel that everybody's talking about, Little Fires Everywhere. I believe it's about the mingling of different kinds of people in a suburb. The film rights of the book were recently picked up by Reese Witherspoon, who I believe is going to be making it into a mini-series. So that's a good reason to get in on this novel early, and I'm really looking forward to it. And a funny thing, after I bought this book and I bought The Dark Dark, I tweeted about buying them, and Celeste Neen and I follow each other, and we've had conversations before. And it was one of those funny coincidental things that she said she was actually reading Samantha Hunt's book of short stories at that very moment. So that was one of those nice little coincidences that happened. Marlena by Julie Buntin. I picked this up in a bookshop when I went shopping with my book buddy Christy, who's one of my oldest friends, and I love her very dearly. And we were browsing around the books, and she looked at this novel and she just sort of pointed at it. And so I thought, like, okay, yes, I'll buy that. I think this is the story of a girl who moves to a new town, and she befriends a girl who's the sort of bad girl named Marlena, and she gets sucked into that whole lifestyle, but then something very bad goes wrong, and then many years later she's reflecting back on this time. I think that's what happens. I don't know, I'll read the novel and see. And finally I got the novel What We Lose by Zinzi Clemmons. This is a novel that Christy actually bought for me. It's the story of a biracial American young woman, and she loses her mother to cancer, and it's about that whole process of grieving. So I'm very eager to read this novel, which a lot of people have been talking about. So those are all the books. Just a few to get through on top of all the other reading that I've been wanting to do, and all the other books that I'm gonna buy this month. But you know, we can't help it, we're addicted. We just have to keep getting more and more books because there's so many wonderful new things out there to read. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you're most interested in reading in the comments below, and let me know what else you've been reading this month. Thanks for watching, and happy reading, everyone!